Thank you, Nolan. And that's what these miracles are. These signs and wonders and acts of God that prove that Jesus is who he said he is. And one of the words that we talked about last time and we ran across was the word glory. This is awful loud. Sorry. High renown or honor won by notable achievements. That's just a current dictionary definition of the word glory. And that's what Jesus is trying to show people, the glory of God through signs and wonders and miracles. We see the power of God, that we are not only see the renown, the high renown, we see the power of God, and we see the wisdom of God, and we see all of the attributes of God in these acts. Besides the beauty of this world that we live in and the creation of it, I keep in the high school class, I talk to them about sometimes even science proves God, that just the complexity of the human body, all of the different systems, the respiratory, the circulatory, all of the different nervous systems that we have in our body is amazing. And one of the verses Sister Marilyn sent out this week was, we are powerfully and wonderfully made, our human body. And so that just shows the glory of God. And Jesus he always gives credit to God for everything that he does. That's just the way he is. Even though he's there, even though he is God, we see him always giving someone else that example of being a servant. So I want us to think about that when we see Jesus talk about the glory of God, that we know and have a better handle, and we can see that in our minds what he's talking about. All right, we're going to pick up right here in John chapter 11. We have Jesus being summoned to come because Lazarus is sick with a fever. I got that mixed up. The fever was with the official son. He was sick, even sick to death, and he delays 2 days in his travel. And as we see, it took 4 days for him to get there. We see him coming into town, but he doesn't come all the way into town, and Martha comes to see him. And we see, and everyone who lives and believes in me, the end of the phrase right here, maybe we'll back up a hair right here. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha says to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? And she said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. This is where we left off last time of this conversation. Mary stayed at home. Martha went out to where Jesus was, and she had this conversation about resurrection. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. I see Jesus sometimes, I think we do this. Sometimes we want to talk to someone privately to say, I'm sorry what you're going through. I'm sorry about all of this. And sometimes you think about deep things, about I'm sure glad, he was a Christian. I'm sure glad she was faithful. I'm sure glad that gives us hope that they're in a better place now. We talk, but we don't do that in front of a crowd. We do that privately, and we see Jesus and them doing the same thing we would probably wanting to have a private conversation, and that's what she wanted to do. Saying this, she said this in private to the teacher. The teacher is here, and he is calling for you. And then Mary gets up and leaves. When she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Verse 29, verse 30. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. Kind of an unusual that he got so close, but he didn't come all the way in. And it may be he wanted to have a private conversation with her without coming into town and being mobbed. This was kind of the usual thing for Jesus now, that when he went places, people were following. People were watching. He had his disciples. He had other followers. He had many that would follow him. And it was probably hard at times to have a private conversation with him. But Jesus, possibly that's why he waited outside of town to give Mary time to be there. Verse 30, Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Okay, we see from this an assumption. Those who are around Mary see her get up and go out, and they make the assumption that she's going to the graveside to weep, to mourn. Apparently that's the normal thing then, and possibly now still. We go through asserting certain things in an occasion like this, and let me promise you, everybody's a little bit different. Everybody does probably what their parents have done. We kind of follow the example that we see others do, and they say, if that happens to me, and it will happen to us, I have family that I know will pass away, and I don't want to be weird or anything, but I think about that. What am I going to do if this happens? I try to prepare myself for the inevitable of it's going to happen. Do you prepare for yourself? Do you don't let this catch you off guard? Well, I see them assuming that's where she's going, but we know different. We know that's not where she's going. They supposed that she is going to the tomb to weep there. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. What did Martha say? Let's back up here. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. You think they have talked about this? If he was very sick, knowing that if Jesus would have been there, he could have healed him. I'm sure this was going through their mind. If not, they talked about this. And here they come up, and it's the very first thing they say. Both of them, the very first thing they say to Jesus is the same thing. If you just been here. They knew the power of Jesus. They knew what he could do.
The Jews that are there following her express the same thing in about 3 more verses. And it's kind of interesting. What's on everybody's mind is, wish she's still alive physically. And Jesus has already begun the teaching of there's something greater than what.
Okay, I want you to expound on that. How did they come to that conclusion if he had been there?
So those points of miracles they've seen have been healing people.
Okay. They had seen that ability. They'd seen him, the action in that. They'd seen him heal many people. As we're going to find out, not all of Jesus' miracles are recorded, but a lot of them are generic of how he healed diseases, he healed lame, he healed blindness. He did a whole bunch of things, but we don't know all the details. And here they've got this in mind. He's the healer. He's the guy that can do this. He's the man of God. He's got a reputation. We talked about this even last week about, does it matter what people think about us? Yes, it does matter. Jesus had a reputation of being a healer. And if he had been here, they had no doubt in their mind. There was enough history of what Jesus was able to do. There was no doubt in their mind that he could have been saved.
And yet, not that I would have been any different. At this point, their lack of understanding why, if he could do one miracle, why didn't he just do everything? He could heal everybody. There would be nobody dying. We have this perfect world.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the point of the miracles.
Exactly. Yeah, he could have just, everybody in Judea, everybody in Galilee. And I'm not saying he couldn't have done. I mean, that's how the world started. That's how the world was created. I think it was. He didn't even wave his hand. He just spoke and it happened. Yes.
So back after Martha made her first statement, she makes a second statement in the very next verse that said, "But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, He'll give you." I don't know what all she meant by that, because she goes on, Jesus in the conversation, she seems to understand that the resurrection is going to happen, but she doesn't seem to think that that can happen right now. So whatever all she meant by that, it doesn't seem to include the fact that she thought Jesus could raise him right now from the dead. I don't know why. If she knew that could happen later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really not sure what all she meant by that, but she did have some other sense that Jesus could still do something.
Regardless if it was for Lazarus or maybe for her. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, of what all she may have meant, and maybe we can ask her one day. Just to get a little clarity of the generic of this situation, what age do you think Mary and Martha and Lazarus are? We got an idea how Jesus in his early 30s, but what age group would you think they fall into? My first thought is the same age group as Jesus. That may not be so. They may be younger, they may be older. I don't know, but they were friends. And I'm not saying you can't be friends with someone older, but normally a lot of your friends are close to your same age. Give or take a little bit. So what do you think maybe, possibly, if Lazarus died too early? In our thoughts of, they know that he's going to raise in the resurrection. Mary gives that great, or Martha gives that great explanation of, I know he's going to be raised, but how many times do we think he's too young, or she's too young, that for things like this to happen? So for them to possibly think say he's in his 30s, late 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, does he have any more productive being a Christian in his life, that he might be productive for God? Sometimes I wonder, I feel like maybe I'm ready to go, but I think I still can give. I can help. Paul ran into that situation. He said, it would be better to die, but for your sakes, it'd be better for me to live, that I can help you. So many times, those of us who are teachers or preachers or whatever you are, you think, I think I can do more. But if the Lord wants to take me right now, that's fine. But I think I haven't got to the age where I can't do more. So maybe that comes in. If Lazarus was a young guy and he was close to Jesus, Matter of fact, Mary's is the one you love, that Jesus loved, Jesus was close to. I'm just wondering if, that thought coming into mind of, it comes into all of our minds, why now? Why do the diseases happen? We don't know why. It just does. It's the world we live in. All right, let's continue on. Very good questions. Now when Mary, verse 32, now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who were come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. That was my influence there on the bottom of the last line there to make that bold. I wanted to talk about that. Have you ever got mad and made a noise? It's usually a growl. Oh, what is that? What is that growl or that might come with a situation? What is that? This is nothing trivial. Yes, sir.
All this that's going on, with all the miracles they witnessed, what has it done? It has not moved anybody, a lot of people, to believe in Christ. And it goes back to that, the earlier statement to the mother, well, it is not my time. It wasn't time. He knew. And so, yeah, well, he knew that he would have been there on time. He could have saved others. It was not his time. Because he knew that something else needed to be done. This is, to me, this last thing here is another thing to him. It's like, there's still a lack of faith in my abilities as Jesus Christ to be able to solve this problem.
Okay. I read a commentary that said that right there. And then I read something else that said, he's touched. I went to a funeral about 10 days ago. And it was a friend of mine, his wife had passed away. I've known him for 30 years. I'd never met her. And the son is getting up there and he's crying and he's telling all these stories of mom and everything. And here I am, I'm kind of wiping my eyes. I've never met her before. But I was touched by what was said. I was touched by the way other people were reacting. And we do that. I think Jesus, probably a combination of when will they get it? When will they catch on? When will they see miracles are from God and what God says, told me to say, what we all say, preaching and teaching, why won't they listen? And then here is a friend, a closer friend than many to him. And when someone else is crying, it touches me. It touches many of us, if not all of us. When this happened, Jesus was troubled. It was one of those, whether it's mad or whether it's type thing, he was touched by this.
Word, when you ask the question, kind of the word frustration somewhat comes to mind that may or may not capture it. I think it certainly is touching on, as you're saying, Jesus' humanity to relate to this situation or feel for it. I've also heard it suggested that it can go much deeper than that this is Jesus being indignation at sin being the cause of sickness and death. I mean, going all the way back to Genesis 3. He said, here's one of his friends, evidently closest or best friends, we would think, who has passed away. And why did that happen? It goes all the way back to Satan and sin and everything as down through the ages.
There's several possibilities of what that is, but he was moved. Whatever the situation was, he was moved. And he says, where have you laid him? Well, I mean, the first assumption they are, he wants to go and mourn. They said to him, Lord, come and see. Then we have what everybody remembers. Jesus wept. Whether that's in connection with being deeply moved or wanting to be where he's at, he wept. And I want us to see the reaction of the people. Apparently, it wasn't in private when Jesus wept. When Jesus... What's the difference between weeping and crying? Well, you say that it's the same. I think there's a little bit of difference. What would you say the difference is between wept, weeping, crying? Or is there a difference?
A little bit more intense, maybe.
I think so. I think it shows more than just I was crying because I was sympathizing with others, but they were weeping because of a great loss to them. When I was at that funeral, that was a big loss to them. I may have been crying just in sympathy to them, but they were mourning, weeping for their great loss, what they felt like at this funeral I went to. Here, Jesus, it wasn't that he cried, he wept a little more because he had lost a friend. He had seen how that loss hurt Mary and Martha. And sometimes we don't get a chance to ask Lazarus, do we? What his opinion was of coming back. Yes, Larry?
Every time the word cried in the New Testament is used, it's cried out. So it's, they cried out this or cried out that. So it's, I think from a Bible perspective, crying is more of a voicing out of the things. Weeping can be somewhat silent. Or somewhat more reserved than crying.
Okay.
I'm just going off what I read
Yeah.
in the text. I could be wrong.
But, yes.
Well, tacking on to what Larry just said, I have a note that says the weeping that the Jews were doing is a different Greek word than the weeping that Jesus, the Greek
Oh,
word's
okay.
different. So I haven't studied that to know. But what the Jews were doing, it says weeping denotes a loud expression of grief, wailing. And that seemed to be customary, they'd fall around wailing, making a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
But what Jesus was doing was a quiet expression more. So I don't know if that
Okay.
matters, but that...
Well, maybe the rest of the context will help us explain how they took it, what they saw and how they took it. Jesus wept, verse 36. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. We see them seeing Jesus weeping and coming to a conclusion. See how much he loved him. So it wasn't, I was sitting in the funeral by myself last week, and, I'm over here doing this, but nobody else saw me, I don't think. Jesus was unable to be doing this in private. He was unable to stop it. Sometimes you can't stop it when something like this starts, and people see what's going on. And those who were round about saw what was going on, see how he loved him. But it's funny, we get another reaction. We get two reactions from this. The first one says, some said, see how he loved him. But verse 37, some of them said, could not he have opened the eyes of the blind? Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? All of a sudden now they're accusing him of not doing what he was able to do. Unless you stand up to the same standard you are to everybody, you're also accused of picking who you want to heal and picking not who you don't want to heal. But how could that happen to the man he loved, the man he cared for? How could he decide not to? Well, we all know the rest of the story. We all know Jesus did this in this particular way for the glory of God. We know this. They don't know that yet. They're going through this for the first time. And sometimes it's hard for us sometimes to be in their shoes because we know too much. We know the whole story. And sometimes if we sit here and think about what they're thinking of and try to blot out how it happens, we might come to the same conclusion. Why didn't Jesus heal like he's healed other people? Why couldn't he? So these questions are legit, but it's funny how we see two different questions here.
Mary, Martha, and these people here have all put limits on what Jesus can do, on his abilities. Now he's about to show them, I'm going another step above, another gear, another level. I think that made that miracle, they all put limits on it. You can't do this. You can heal the sick, but you can't. That's where it stops. But here he's going to take it one step further that, had never been done before.
That's a very good answer. Why did Jesus build up? It just made me think of something. Why did Jesus start off with turning the water to wine instead of doing something? Here I am making degrees of miracles. That's what I've done here. Here, Dwayne's made a good point. He had never healed. He never raised someone from the dead yet. All he's done was turn something natural, water to wine. He was able to stop the wind and the storm while they were on the sea. Then he's also been able to heal diseases and different things. And there's the limit. Dwayne has pointed out, which is what they've got, is a limit of what he can do. Why? You ever thought about why Jesus started out with the little things? Water to wine, stopping the wind, which are miracles. I'm not saying they're not. But they're not as big. Here I am making a human comparison here. They're not as big as healing someone. Someone who's never walked before, to get him up and walk. That seems bigger than turning water to wine, but it's still.
Does faith come in 100% whammy on the spot, or is it like the apostles, increase our faith?
I believe that's it. And he gets to the point right here of raising someone from there, but they hadn't seen that yet. They don't know that's coming yet. Now, Martha or Mary have both thought, I know anything's possible with you, but they haven't seen that yet. They haven't seen, and Jesus always gives God the credit, God the Father the credit. This is all part of the plan. Yes, sir.
I would just add the flip side of that. Along the way, the apostles, Martha, Mary, like whoever, they knew enough to go ahead and obey and follow it, which Jesus expected. He didn't say wait till you know 100% or you're 1,000% convicted and then decide. As their faith grew, they were to follow and obey and do these things. And we should be the same way. Some people sit back, I don't know enough, I don't know it all. We never will.
I think your mom and I have talked about this before of how can we read a scripture that we've known all of our life and see something that we didn't see before. Our faith continues to grow. It may start off, and here's my math skills here. Here's my faith when I became a Christian, and each time it's growing and growing and growing, and I'm up to this height now. You know what? I think there's more still. There's more. There's more faith. More seeing the big picture of our faith still can grow. And as Nola's done such a good job of saying, that's how the apostles started out. And their faith has grown and grown and grown. Even to the point that I brought this in a Wednesday night lesson one time. Jesus said to Peter the night before he was going to be executed, crucified, when you turn, strengthen the brothers. He said, I'm not going to turn. I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to deny you. I'm going to go with you all the way to death. And then that's the story of before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Not just once, but 3 times. We'll have a little setback, but Jesus had faith in Peter. When you turn, when you come back, your brothers are going to need you. We'll have setbacks. We'll have things like we do that, oh, I can't believe I did that. But we'll come back. Jesus had confidence in Peter. I believe we will do that too. We will come back, and then our faith will grow to the point of Peter giving the first gospel lesson, not long after this. 40 days later, 50 days later. Yes?
The point is still there, though, as has been expressed. Jesus is groaning at their lack of faith. True that they haven't personally seen this miracle done. However, in their scriptures, the Old Testament scriptures, they did have recordings. They appreciated the workings of Elijah and the prophets who did raise the dead. And so I think Dwayne kind of nailed it on the head with his comment about limiting God's power. They have written examples of men that they held up who had the power of God. But when it came to Jesus, for some reason, they don't seem to think that he has this power, despite all the miracles that he has worked. And so I personally think, from what I've studied, verse 38 is more so where Jesus is groaning, is based upon the combined lack of faith between Mary, Martha, and the Jews. What I've read at the end of verse 33 or thereabouts was more so tied in with his humanity, as is following in the context in 34 and 35. He weeps right alongside them. His groaning is about the sadness he sees in his friends, his personal loss at a friend. But in verse 38, after this tremendous expression from the Jews, this guy could open the blind man's eyes, but he couldn't have kept me from dying. That's when Jesus, his groaning, from what I've studied on it, seems to be more pointed towards their lack of faith.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
I
not
think
saying
that put it
that,
that. I think that's helped all of us
but I think that's
with this.
more so kind of how it's laid out here in the sequencing of it.
Okay, because he does it again. He groans again. You know, it still touches him again. That where's the faith? Where is that? Then Jesus, here he is, deeply moved. He's groaning again. Came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone laid against it. Jesus says, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Before we continue on right there, what difference does that make if the body is starting to decay?
No doubt about it.
There's no doubt about it, for one thing. That dust to dust. If this is a possibility, is that going to be the last thing I remember about my brother, Martha or Mary? Or I'd hate that be the last thing I remember about someone, of they're already decaying, rotting. I don't know why she would say that. I mean, because I think Jesus knows that. They may have thought about that. I really didn't think about it till it hit me. Why would she make this request? Or maybe it was too late. You know, if he just died, and then, this is the human reasoning again. If he had just died, that would be the easiest time. Here we are humanizing a miracle. Miracles doing something impossible. But maybe in your human thinking, he's beyond coming back. Possibly that's it. It's been 4 days. It's not like healing, he's still got legs, healing the lame man, he's just making him strong again. But there's a possibility, I don't know. It just struck me as, why would Mary want to say this or felt a need to say this?
Could have just been a knee-jerk reaction because she's like,
Are
we
you,
just don't do this.
it's like, are you kidding me? Type thing.
The shock maybe of it.
Sure.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, I thought we came, they had the wrong impression. What did they think Jesus wanted to do when he got to the grave? Mourn. Weep and cry and mourn and weep like they were doing. Like they were supposing Mary and Martha were doing when they came out there. And he says, where did you lay him? And he said, he wants to go and weep too. Just like that. All of a sudden Jesus surprised him and said, when he says, roll away the stone. Hang on a second. I didn't think that's why we were here. I thought we were here to just weep and mourn. He says, move away the stone, and she says that. Verse 40, Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? That's the whole purpose of all of these signs and wonders and miracles, was to show the glory of God, and maybe you listen. After this is being revealed, this glory of God, that He has got this much power. Oh, okay. No, that's right. So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up His eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. He hadn't said anything yet. Let's read the rest of this and talk about why he's saying this in past tense. Thank you, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. I see from this account, now I know not everything is recorded, but I see probably, we think on something when we pray in silent, we pray to God, but I see a two-way street with them that we don't have today, of God and them without anybody else knowing this. I'm not saying that's the way it is, but possibly Jesus and God have this two-way conversation all the time. And the only time He says anything out loud is for those who are around Him for their purpose.
I think it goes back to He's always giving glory and praise to God for everything He's done. Father, I thank you that you've heard me in the past, my last season. I knew that you always hear me. Stating His faith aloud for Jews. I know that you always hear me. You're always listening. You're always listening to that.
And here He is saying this for everybody else's benefit of who gets the glory. God gets the glory. Even Him, He takes Himself out of the picture when He's really part of the picture. Jesus is part of the picture, but He wants to remove He always gives God the glory, gives God the credit. Here He is, He does it again. I thank you, you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I did this so that everybody else would know that you sent me. Why did Jesus need to prove that God sent Him?
He's still teaching at this time. The whole time, this whole story, He's teaching. Everything He said, He's teaching. Because the apostles still were not real strong. And He's teaching everybody that's in the crowd, too.
Exactly. They needed to know where He was from. He was from God. And if He's from God, what did the woman at the well say? We know you must be, another story, the woman at the well in Samaria, The woman says, you must be a prophet of God because you knew everything about me and I didn't tell you anything. You must be a prophet of God. And what did she do? She went and gathered people to come and listen to him. He's doing the same thing here. He's getting ready, he's saying this prayer. He's getting ready to show them the glory of God, and I want all of these people to know where this comes from. This comes from God, and if it came from God, maybe you'll listen. That's what he's trying to get people to do, to listen to him, to listen to God's word. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said, unbind him and let him go. I think they would have been, just like we would have been, stunned of what they just saw happen. Sometimes we get stunned and we kind of freeze. We freeze up. Go unbind him so he don't fall over. You know, he's bound up. He's wrapped up, and his face is covered. He can't see. He can't walk. I don't even know how he got to the door. But he did, and everybody's froze. Going, shut your mouth. I can't believe they saw what they were seeing. Mary and Martha said, all of a sudden, all these things start going through their minds. My brother's alive. He was stinking just a second ago, and now he's alive. And there he is. And Jesus said, go help him. Go help him. It's funny that he has to tell them to go help him. But it was recorded for us to remember of the state they were in. They froze. They were froze in their spots. But then the reaction. You would think everybody's happy about this. Many of the Jews, therefore, this isn't part of the miracle, but this is the reaction of the Jews that were there. We've already established we got apostles, we got family, we've got many Jews around coming to see this, coming to see what had happened. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, believed in him. That's exactly the purpose of these miracles. They believed in him that he is the Son of God. He is who, they saw the glory and it got the reaction Jesus wanted. They believed in him. Verse 46, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Go and tell the Pharisees what's going on. Hey, we just saw a miracle. We just saw something wonderful. So the chief priests and Pharisees gathered the council and said, what are we to do? For this man performs many signs. What are we to do? If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. That's wonderful. No, that's not what they're thinking. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. Hang on a second. We're going to be out. Someone will be in. The Romans will think we've lost power. Things are falling apart. They'll have to take, they're jumping to conclusions here. Nobody has said anything about the nation falling. Nobody has said anything about that. And here they're jumping to conclusions. We can't let this go on. All right, we have to stop. Thank you very much.